What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Scyushi, and we are back in with some more Genshin Impact. Today we're going to be talking about Raiden Shogun, or Baal, as I like to call her, because everyone keeps saying, it's Baal, it's Baal, it's Baal. I have gotten a pretty cracked Baal. Not necessarily like God tier or anything like that, but generally speaking, I'm very, very happy with how she is. Now, I gotta give you guys a couple heads up, a couple pointers about myself personally and how I play this game. I don't use food, I don't use Bennett or character buffs in that regard. Most of all, I just use the characters that I enjoy. And a lot of the damage tests that I was actually doing with Baal was on the Masanori enemy, which is a world quest that you can end up getting here, and basically you can fight this guy over and over again. He does have some resistances to damage. I don't know if he's got resistance specifically to Electro, but the point is that he's consistent. So that is where I ended up just trying tons of different artifact sets on him, a couple different weapons on him, and so on and so forth. And generally speaking, Baal is going to end up scaling off of energy recharge, but not as much as you would think. I think you'll actually find my results today quite shocking, pun entirely intended. Now, a couple other things I gotta mention. I do have her C2, but all of the damage tests that I ended up doing, I didn't apply the constellations. I was just trying it out. The reason why I mentioned this is because her C2 is absolutely insane and makes it so that her attacks ignore 60% of defense. Yikes. All of my talents are at level 7. I'm probably going to end up increasing those a bit depending on what drops I end up getting from Signora, but generally speaking, I would say that this is a very, very obtainable build for Baal, and more specifically is going to end up being a very, very free-to-play friendly build, because if you actually don't have... This is funny. I was actually very surprised about this. If you don't have her 5-star weapon, which I in good conscience cannot recommend you end up wishing on this, especially if you're free-to-play, you're throwing your luck to the gods, okay? If you get the weapon, okay, awesome. If you don't, or if you spend money, you're gonna generally have to spend a lot of money on the weapon banner. The odds of the thing is just absolutely stupid, and even with the new mechanic where you can end up setting up this whole selected weapon thing, you basically have to trigger pity like 3 times in order to end up getting the weapon. It's just, I've had bad experience with the weapon banners, and I've literally seen friends drop hundreds of dollars on the weapon banner, not getting the weapon that they wanted over and over again. But so the point of all of that is just saying that obviously that weapon is your best in slot. However, if you don't have it, the catch is her absolute best weapon. Okay, now there's a couple builds we're going to be talking about today, in which case you would end up swapping out the catch, but generally speaking, this is going to end up being her best weapon, even over Skyward Spine, which just so happens to be another 5-star spear that I just happen to have. Staff of Homa might end up being pretty good, but generally you can see that the energy recharge on this is insane. You could end up using Favonius Lance as well, but generally get the catch, okay? It's going to be super tedious and super boring. The way to get the catch is you have to basically spend hours upon hours of fishing. I'll, have a link in the description, as well as a card in the top right of the video to my video that does instruct you of how to get the catch, but pretty much this is going to be her best in slot. The only alternatives I would recommend is the crit damage spear or the crit rate spear, but that we'll get into a little bit further down the line, because that entirely depends on how you want to end up having her built. Now, moving on to the artifacts, there's actually quite a few different options. So this right here is the overall best, okay? Surprising, I know. You would think that the 4-piece Severed set is going to end up being the best, but check this out. So this is kind of weird. I'm using a 2-piece Thunder, which I ended up getting overall pretty good stats on, and then I'm using an attack percentage Noblesse Sands, which obviously doesn't really matter, and then another attack percentage for my Goblet. Honestly speaking, that's just because I don't have a Noblesse Goblet that has Electro. So, beggars can't be choosers. It's not like you have to have this specific set of equipment. It ultimately is just that you have to have 2-piece Noblesse and 2-piece Thunder's Fury. And maybe you'll get luckier than me and actually have, your Goblet be Electro damage that is either or. And then for your hat, you can end up using... Well, that's not right. You can end up using either a crit damage hat or a crit rate hat. Just for today, we're just gonna be rocking that hat. It's overall not a great one, but you can see that my stats are decent, okay? So with my attack and attack, you generally want to have maybe around over 1,000. I don't know. I don't really want to throw you guys with specific numbers because, of course, all of this is going to depend on how powerful you are in the game, how high your world tier is, everything like that. But generally, you're going for a normal standard damage build, and then you generally are going for nowhere more than 200% energy recharge. I mean, if you just have the same set I do, but you happen to end up having much higher energy recharge or crit damage or whatever, then all the power to you. It's very, very random with your artifacts and so on and so forth. But I found that this is the overall best set just because it's going to end up not only making, you know, having a very high damage like this is going to make it so that your base attack is going to end up doing quite a bit of damage. Your E ability is going to end up doing quite a bit of damage, as well as your ultimate ability doing a lot of damage. And that's kind of the thing, is this is the overall, I want to be very clear about that, the overall well-rounded build that you can end up using with Baal. There is a couple alternatives that you can end up doing. So if you want to end up having pretty much the exact same thing, but you want Baal to be more skewed towards using her E ability, maybe you don't like popping her out that much, maybe you don't even really care that much about her, you know, her ultimate ability, maybe you just want to have this extra passive electro damage. So with just her E, you could do a couple different combinations. Either you could use Shimenawa's, then combine with a Gladiator, of course, keeping in mind that Shimenawa basically is just going to end up being a gladiator. Or you could actually combine either of these two sets with Thundering Fury, just because you're going to end up getting that extra electro damage. The E ability of Baal is going to end up scaling based off of crits, so you could end up actually swapping out the catch and going for either Black Cliff or Deathmatch, just because of the fact that you are wholeheartedly using her just so that you can end up having that higher E ability. And I was able to get that to around like 12k on the initial slash, and then somewhere around 5k to higher than that based on crits, of just the passive damage buff. But the big difference, of course, in using either a burst build or an E, you know, her elemental skill, is the fact that her burst is very, very greedy. It's like she's basically like a 5-star version of Razor, where you have to finish the entire attack combo in order to see the most benefit from it. And so when you swap that to end up using her elemental skill in order to end up complementing your characters, it means that you're basically just going to be swapping everything out for raw damage, like 100%. Even you could even swap out the catch for like 5-star spears, just because of the fact that they're going to end up having higher base attack. If you are actually going to be using her more so for her ultimate, then you actually do want to end up having a full, not only a full of the severed set, but also you can end up doing like this. So I've got crit damage, electro damage, attack percentage, because she doesn't scale as well on energy recharge as we think. And then, you know, of course, the stats that you end up getting on these is all entirely based on luck. And then, of course, you would end up using the catch, because the point is that with the catch having such a high amount of energy recharge, not to mention that you can get it full refinement, it's going to end up making your elemental burst that much stronger. And this set of artifacts does end up equaling out to more damage overall with your ultimate, versus you know, using an Obelisk or using a Gladiator or whatever. Anyways, with this, it's going to end up being more so about her burst. Her E ability is still going to be okay, but it's going to be lacking compared to the other builds that I just mentioned, and her base attack is going to suffer a lot more from using this set. But you're going to end up compensating, because you're going to end up having a lot more energy recharge than you would otherwise, which does mean you can end up using your elemental burst a lot more often, and the 4-piece set ends up just scaling like through the roof, the amount of damage that you can end up doing. And as you can see, my stats again are very, very similar, but ultimately this ends up making your burst a lot stronger. I don't know, it's like close to 10k more damage I was able to do. The other thing too that I want you guys to consider is that I was doing all of these tests without maximum resolve. So if you ever ended up seeing this weird circle thing show up on your back, that is basically going to end up getting stronger and stronger and stronger as you end up using all of your other characters. And the point that I'm trying to get at is I did not do these tests with maximum resolve. I basically just did 3 of my, like 1, 2, 3 ults, and then just made sure I used Baal's ult last. And that's how I most of all just wanted to have consistent tests, right? But you're going to end up being considerably stronger when you end up having full resolve. And generally speaking, with the two opposing builds, you know, the damage numbers were very, very close to one another, but generally speaking, the severed 4-piece set is going to end up being better for your ultimate ability. But if you're looking for her base attack and her E ability to be better, then you'll end up using 2-piece Thunder, 2-piece Noblesse. However, if you do have constellations on her with her C2 and making it so that it not only ignores the extra damage and stuff, then suddenly the severed set becomes way better, just because of the fact that this obviously is built around her ultimate, and it just ends up making it like generally like way stronger. But anyways, I don't need to get into any of that stuff. Now, of course, if you are unlike me and actually like to use good characters that complement each other, well, then you could end up using either another Electro character thrown into your party would end up benefiting you, just because in Inazuma, if you pick up Electro Ganem, you end up doing like a lot more damage or something like that when you have Electro characters. So generally just pick up Electro Ganem while you're in Inazuma. But overall, you could use Bennett to end up, of course, increasing your burst, which is going to end up seeing huge benefits for her. But overall, you probably want to end up having someone to react with, and it kind of doesn't help me with the fact that I'm using like Geo and Animo, so it's like characters that I can't end up proccing any types of reaction with. So your Baal is probably going to end up being a lot stronger than mine. But as I mentioned previously, I like using the characters that I like using. General rule of thumb is you can end up using all sorts of different characters to end up complementing Baal, or more specifically, she fits very well in that she complements other characters more so than her actually being strong, unless you end up having her C2, and then she's absolute god tier. But anyways, thanks for watching. Smash like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel, and have yourselves a fantastic day, everybody.